in terms of flow hacking or more flowing, there's a lot of different approaches. The positive psychologist Martin Seligman, those guys, they will say that one of the best ways to do is figure out, and they have a diagnostic. It's free. It's online. I think if you go to the University of Pennsylvania, you'll find it. But it's like a strength finder diagnostic. So Martin Seligman has argued that the best way to seek flow is to figure out what are your 5 core strengths and find a job or a craft or whatever it is right at their intersection. And that's the best way. And it's because if you're working at your 5 core strengths, you've got a lot of motivation. Right? Flow follows focus. And when we're really motivated, one of the reasons is with 5 strengths, you're gonna have lots of little victories. You're gonna get lots of little dopamine hits, right? Okay. I did it right. And all that dopamine is driving focus, so it'll drive flow. So that's one place to start.
But you need some risk and uncertainty as well.
Well, he just says, do this and it'll get you there. What we say, and how our approach was, let's work backwards from the neurobiology, right? Let's start with the mechanism. And so we looked at the triggers, and there are about 22 flow triggers that we know of. There are probably way more that we don't, but 22 have kind of been identified. Not all of them validated thoroughly at this point, and there are 10 of them are group flow triggers, and there are about 12 of them that are individual flow triggers. And the best way to do it is just build your life around those triggers, right? And they go from like complete concentration is a flow trigger. So when I work with organizations, one of the first things we do is we go in and say, look, if you can't put a sign on your door that says "fuck off, I'm flowing," can't do this work. What the research shows is that 90 to 120 minutes of uninterrupted concentration sort of maximizes flow. Okay. And uninterrupted concentration. So like, you turn off the cell phone, you turn off the Twitter, you turn off social media, right? Uninterrupted concentration.
This is like 1% of the population that does this, or workplaces.
Yeah, and workplace and open office plans.
Forget it.
Fucking disaster. Yeah. Absolute disaster for flow. Terrible. But some of this stuff that we're seeing, like the WeWork, the co-working spaces, they've all got like little pods, like a little phone booth that you can go in and, lock yourself away. So I think, one of the interesting things about flow is this is how we perform at our best, right, as human beings. So we will naturally move towards these flow triggers anyways, right? It's how we drive when we're aiming for high performance, which is why, if you start taking all the high performance podcasts that are out there and kind of, if you were to diagnose what people are saying, if you go through them, the advice starts to overlap a lot. Of course it does, because it's evolution, it's biology, and most of it points in this direction. There's other stuff you can do, but most of it points in this direction. But like uninterrupted concentration is sort of baseline. Novelty, complexity, unpredictability, risk, all those things drive focus. Csikszentmihalyi identified early on as the 3 flow triggers he identified, clear goals, which basically says like flow follows focus, right? Clear goal is I know what I'm doing now, I know what I'm doing next. It's not like a big hairy goal, it's not a massively transformative purpose, it's a chunked down, I know what I'm doing right now, I know where I'm going next, right? So right. Focus can
It's not I'm gonna win a gold medal, it's like I'm gonna get past that turn and I'm gonna
yeah, it's exactly
real
that.
micro
No,
goals.
it's micro goals, right? It's really micro goals. Like I remember talking to, I'm going to blank his name, I'm sorry, I'm a little tired, professional surfer, brilliant, and he was talking about when he was learning to surf really monster waves, and he would break it down like into 3 paddle strokes. His goal was, I'm going to paddle really hard 3 times, I'm going to paddle really hard 3 more times, I'm going to get to my feet. Like, it was that small. I think about it when I write, like often I'll set clear goals along the way. Okay, just 200 words, 200, you know what I mean? A couple of paragraphs, that kind of thing. Those are clear goals. Immediate feedback is another one, right? And you see this is another workplace thing that's a disaster, right? Like, what do? We give our employees quarterly reports or annual, it's a disaster. So another thing that I always tell people to do is, if you can't find a feedback system that you can set up, find a feedback buddy. Find somebody in your office to give your guys, daily feedback, or, a couple times a week. In writing, I have discovered that, I call it the minimal feedback for flow. For me, I need to know, is my writing boring, arrogant, or confusing? And those things tend to mean something. So if my writing is arrogant, meaning I'm using a lot of fancy words and complex sentences, I'm usually trying to disguise the fact that I haven't done enough research. And often I don't even know that I haven't done enough research, right? I just see the arrogance in the writing and I'm like, oh, I'm covering for something, and that's right. And you know, when my writing is confusing, it's usually I don't know my starts and my endings kind of thing. And if it's boring, I haven't found the right style for what I'm writing. So there's a guy on my staff who reads everything I write, and a couple times a week he gives me, and I don't need a lot of feedback. I need, is it boring? Is it arrogant? Is it confusing? And that's all I need to sort of steer by. So when you find a feedback buddy, it's not like open season, right? Because that's a bad idea. You're going to start getting in your head, right? So figure out what it is exactly, you know, the thing that you do best. You probably, you know, if you're doing podcasts or videos, right, there's probably a couple metrics you really look at. Those would be your minimal feedback for flow, and there's probably somebody on your staff who clues you in on those things. You may not even know that you're doing that, but that's what you're probably hunting. And of course, the most famous of Flow's triggers, it's often called the golden rule of flow. It's what's known as the challenge skills balance. And the idea is
challenge skills balance. Okay, yeah.
We pay the most attention to the task at hand when the challenge of the task slightly exceeds our skill set. So you want to stretch but not snap, right? And it's tricky because it's for underachievers, for quieter people, meeker people, it's outside your comfort zone, right? So you're pushing past your comfort zone, and that's tricky because you have to get used to it. But for overachievers, for type A types, for guys who are probably wired like we are, we will bypass that sweet spot, you know, by taking on challenges that are like 10%, 20%, 30% greater without even noticing it. And again, the secret, you know, you can have those big audacious goals, but you've got to chunk them down so you stay in that little sweet spot, right? And what's tricky about it is it's day after day, right? So your challenge level is always going to go up a little bit every day, a little bit every day, a little bit every day. So you want to push a little bit harder, you know, every day.